이바지 상가 그러면은 다다다 인공대력 남들이 참을 다시 되려서 이제 얘나 참 되어요나 장께 고도에 머리
Hello. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you please allow me to unmute myself? Because right now I'm not allowed to unmute myself. So Rinpoche was saying, good afternoon to everyone around the world, and Ashidele to everyone. I think
나 고도에
Rinpoche nga kodo.
야야야 저거 정거 고고라 들리들이 당서 이당나 퍼퍼줍지다 다다다 drubchen 차대요래 들으서는 적진 삼만 야리 강제 들 남주 샘신 삼체다 용도들 노저 법에 걸라지 나와 탐지 라 잡아 탐지 하 대해서 들 뒤도 시절로 봐들 나다 렉som 상하 죽응앙송 네 뭐만 벌리 때치 생각했기 때서 대다 내 차들 다 잡을로서 냠데 속요래 당내에서 차대요래
Shingla pep de sosong.
밀링 때치게 무슨
Milling
말이야
dechen.
나다 렉som 상하 죽응앙제 나와 탐지 라 잡아 하 뒤도 시절로 봐들 그랬더니 또 님마게 대 앙자처럼 거라 무슨 공부한다는 거야 나다 렉som 상하 죽응앙 거당이 싫어만 얌래봐 사상 남들 지면 얌래 이미 토끼색으로 지고 대참이 점서 저거 말이 나다를 나와서 잡아 하 뒤도 시절로 봐서 대세서 거래 대책게는 저것들이 다 문제에 차대요.
So now we are starting the Vajrakilaya Drubchen, and actually this now is a real Drubchen, the way we are practicing it now. And so in the great accomplishment, we realize that the outer universe is the boundless palace, and the inner sentient beings are all the mandala deities of Vajrakilaya, and all appearances are the deity, all sounds are the mantra, all thoughts arising in the mind are the display of primordial wisdom. So in the Nyingma tradition, so there's this a prayer that Miling Dechin actually said before he passed away. There's this praise that it says all appearances are the deity, all sound is the mantra, all thoughts are awareness, the display of awareness, of primordial awareness, all arising from within the state of the Dharmakaya. So this particular line is considered to be very precious in the Nyingma tradition, and we also practice it in our monastery.
내가 용진 가용면 다 대시고요래. 저리 지켜보요래. 대 강리지나. 심지 남는 상계니 온자 로버트 메드 토마테서 상계고 책섬디 디는 다 되게 누구요래. 나다르서 참아 책 방거리면이 대 강리지네들이 슬론지 띵데 조왕하랑 지리 조왕하들이 영아랑 지 조왕하들 람지 동바 오 사발 랑지 또 빠차디 요래 문에들 중앙아전 전용주요 말이 내가 제가 요래 매일 차별랑지 매일 가린 전용주요 말이 변나 대동 중앙아랑 진들이 영아랑지 들이chen 게 줄여서다 유몽말이 유몽 봐더니 랑이 시합단 행기를 돼서 이 시간에 메소드 성우도 메소드 성우도는 유몽 봐는 쉽게 줄여서다 등에 제게 요래 들이제 상속선데 메타버는 제가 들이제 이실은 줄은 유몽이 시 카카 말이 생다 메뉴가 다다 카카리 연한 중사 생대 메는 제나不생대 메는 제나 들이 생다 메니 냠지래 들이不생세베 메다 들이 생대 타가지고 문이 생대 요 말이 빼대다 들이다 다시 진탐제 저 평강찜지 네 생다를 들이제로 탑 사무상하가 탑 들이 돈이 hinge sonde jo patavandina 들이 메다를 들이 메다 보생체 받다가 문이 사진 접지 받이 생다 메지 되네들이 생대 들이 정말로 직접 매봤더니 돈이나 전적으로 빼대다가 대외라들이 신지 탐지가 줄라 들이 사지가 저요치 받이 부신 탐지가 줄라 매그람지 요래대 대다वर 대하고는 들이 다다시 라드저게 체팔요 말이 나다저게 체팔요 말이 라는 강라 강들 텔레트 동배지 들이 사시와가는 토가는 들이 주대 양치는 절량들이 내 땅보 탐제 사주 남자주 나 사마게 주대 제 들이 하니마게 니들이나 제고는 이거는 놀라티 탐치에 동다 가리리 생대 매란절 매대 동반이는 절 들이 되라 동반이는 동해요 말이야. 동해를 좋아서 뒤동사 들이상하 탑지체 봐대 탑망 까랑미 봐대서 들이 탑 하다만 보리 대외 참에 탑도 카카카카리 쌍거리 뒤자는 마삼 들이 잡는 상하 되는 되니다다 십지삼치 사제리 뜻이 하고 말이야. 별로 들어도 사제들 딱 빨리 쌍거리 들어 오늘 들어지 속지 두제리 센터들 센터 사제를 좀 그래서 뒤따오도 고아 차를 들면서 드럽치는 저거 그래지.
So in the secret mantra practice of the generation stage, we say that the deity, the generation, is all generation is primordially pure. This is what the Buddha himself had said. And actually, of all his teachings, there's really just one sentence that I really do know, although I do not have a lot of learning at all. This is one thing I do know and have real trust in. And that is when the Buddha said, all sentient beings are actually Buddhas. They are only obscured by adventitious stains, and when these stains are removed, all beings are manifest, actual Buddhas. So actually that statement is in essence the same as saying that all appearances are the deity, all sound is the mantra, and mental arisings are the display of primordial awareness. And so the outer universe, the world, consists of the 5 elements. And the 5 elements by nature are the 5 female Buddhas, because the nature of these elements is emptiness. The nature is emptiness, but their essence is also is clear. So they're there, but actually ungraspable. We cannot grasp the 5 elements, and yet they do perform various activities. For example, fire is hot, but we cannot grasp it, we can't hold it. So the 5 elements are the 5 female Buddhas. And then on the inner level, in the minds of sentient beings, there are the 5 afflictive emotions. And when the mind becomes infused with wisdom and compassion, then these 5 afflictions become the 5 wisdoms. The 5 afflictions are just like the seeds of a flower. And for as long as they are afflictions, they give a lot of suffering to all sentient beings. But then if they encounter the fire of bodhicitta, then these afflictions transform into wisdom. Actually, the afflictions and wisdom are not separate. It is just like fire and wood are actually not separate. So when wood meets fire, then it burns and it turns into ashes. And then there is no more wood. So no wood exists then. So just like that, the aggregates, elements, and sense basis of sentient beings is like wood. And so the Vajrayana secret mantra has a very skillful method to actualize that. And that is the union of emptiness and compassion, which we call the view. And that view is like fire. So when the wood of our aggregates and so on meets with fire, that view, then one actually accomplishes Buddhahood. And then one realizes that the wood to begin with hasn't ever really existed. It is just emptiness. And so all sentient beings possess the potential, the cause of enlightenment within them. So just like the wood possesses the potential of fire within it, the nature of fire is inherent in the wood already. And now because of that, that's the nature of the deity and our bodies, it doesn't matter which deity one practices or which mantra one recites. The Buddha taught according to the diverse needs of sentient beings. So some who like peaceful deities, they can practice those, and others like the wrathful deities and so on. There's the various classes of Tantra that we can practice. And for beginning practitioners, for example, according to the new tantric system, we practice first the action, the Kriya Tantra, and then the Upa Tantra, and then the Yoga Tantra, and so on. So there's those 4 classes, and then the Anuttara Yoga Tantra. And according to the old tantric system, we practice according to the 4 branches of approach and accomplishment. But in brief, the meaning of all of this, the purpose of all of this practice is to make the wood encounter fire so that it becomes empty, that the wood becomes empty. And when there's emptiness, in emptiness, there is no suffering. Therefore, we find liberation in emptiness. And so the secret mantra, jnana teachings are skilled in means. The secret mantra is rich in skillful means and requires the least difficulties. So there are so many different skillful means, methods of practice in the secret mantra. But you shouldn't think that all of these methods are different or separate from each other. So the Vajrayana teaches is that all sentient beings are actually Buddhas. And that's something that no one has realized. I mean, sentient beings haven't realized that. For example, if you say that an animal is actually a Buddha, if you don't understand that, you might think that that's a really stupid thing to say because it's an animal. So the body of the animal is an animal. It's a compounded phenomenon, but it's the mind of that animal that is actually a Buddha. So it is on the basis of this understanding that we should engage in the great accomplishment or the Drubchen practice.
Tapo Chunguni, Yam, Sati Yamichum, Yam Yong, the Yore. Part the Tela Tinity Romatam Checker, Mepachim, Yore. Three Tela Tinibala, Sambala, Triti, Tonitini, Datum, Jinji, Checklatinity, Senchi, Jula, Three Joko Yore, Soa Tokatin Joko Yore, the Taps and Hatamchi. Sir Madab Pachate, Soa Tokatinity, Secretary Pacha Joko Yore. Three all at the Taber Hachinati, Soa Tokatinity, Wabugongani, three like Julia Shoulder. Three even Charon of the Shoko, Simpkin Charonry, Simpkin Sanjeshi, but Charon the Chores on Sanjay. Kashik on Tel Sanju Saji Kari dinner, or chopped off the Chore the killing to the way, the tail killing to the dog. On Charon or a yellow tartan with the Dutch bar. The Chokari celebrate, or take to a carry, or Charon the Choma, or Ramjing. Jutin temple Latinity, teaching the young Namchi, much harder to me. There is a child Charon Chason with the Hakuna. The little bit Hakul, oh, Saint Sanjeshi by the time Charon Chore, the Tikwa Chagore. Tomar Titi, the show, Tarotri, Sanjay Sultan Hassan, Ramjeramba, then the Kali, the whole legend Deshi. The little bit on his Hako. The little on his Samata and his Sanjo, 7 watches, John Dini. Tony Tonjang Maimba, the little in just on the Joba, Saston on the Joba, then touch at the Tavason. Three terror or title, Miss Sanjay de Giovati, Tony Joshua, Sanjay of the Goyo Mary. There's the Tony and Jesus on the Joba, there is Saston song joke. There is in touch at the Tavatra, Dakota, Shepherdta, Yuvata, Mepata, Gun to Jamavatri, or to Rangaton Motor, nothing Jimmy. 동대들이 사지 좀 되게 뛰는 판에 따뜻한 잡을는 게 체력과 탑재가 때네요. 타타고 따와시 봐도 여다 매 따뜻하게 동거리 가시는 매제 거요. 같이 그 요제 거요. 얘는 따뜻하고 다 사지고 좀 봐도 체력이 시랍라들이 영장도 딱 깨더니 고트고요. 시랍라들이 다 하고 요래. 다 사지시 봐도 요와 되는 망이 성능 요봐. 야 타고 생각이 요 같아 탑지 다 무슨 하고 요래 대외로 타마 이 체력을 지게나 다 줄지게 줘요래 추야 지게를 세고 말 추라고 따와서 하고 서서는 들이 사지 착다타와를 예 제를 저기 추다와들 말이 되나 대통령을 다 주좀 사지 들이 좀 레터를 다 주좀 사지 들려서 매봐 돈이 좀 돼야 되잖아요 이 따와 이치 토야 요래데 옛날 대상식에 띠니들이 다다 십진대로 탑만 까미 바지 들이 소당 가서 람제를 말씀 그냥 따따따 상하삼이 탑 근데 그서 로망보 제 드리포 인제를 줄 인제 다당 책다 돈들을 줄 들이 담양에 제바 상하를 가리 고는 차차들이 로망상들을 야 요래 내 열들 고소로 소화지에 대회를 드리고서 드바포를 탑치를 다 같이 오차요면은 때문에 다라도들 존은 더 같이 버리들 라이시와 참아서 같이 버리 그랬다 퍼바나 사자 레로 뉴마 아주 소리가 들리면 들리는 거요래 그렇게 되는 나라서 잘 때마 퍼바케는 거요래 대양 들리는 거요래 사자를 까맣게 냐들리는 거요래 다 뉴마 때만 냐들은 너는 퍼바들 저기 가래 도지 조는 동맹 쪽 와서들이 다쪽들이 이식을 롱들이 쩌던 거요래 대다고 지는 들다던 것들이 참아갈 때 때문에 뛰네들이 로마 보냐면서 랑 되는 양용돼서 줄었지 대는 들이 뒤철로 되는 거 속에서 독탑당 대라서 받아서 강시지들 싸우지 답도 제기요래 대회들이 저런 왕을 떼서 뭐도 싸우지 노들이 동대래
And so now we have been practicing the Vajrakilaya retreat in Arizona, and we have regarded it as something very important. But that's not just because the deity is very unique, more unique than other deities. That's not the reason. because all the wisdom deities are one and the same. But the reason why it has become so special is because, first of all, I have gained a personal experience in this practice since a very young age. I've engaged in this practice and have gained some experience. And then secondly, due to this experience that I have gained, many disciples have developed a great aspiration to also engage in this practice. And then thirdly, on top of that, it is that we have had many instructions on this practice. And so it is then through the instructions, the words, that these words generate thoughts which kind of bring together words and meaning. And so due to that, an understanding has arisen in the mind streams of disciples. And through their six sense doors or six sense consciousnesses, some have developed a very special experience, feelings when they engage in this practice. And so this has then placed a good imprint into their mind. And that is unlike the impure imprints that arise within our mind. So through this practice, we are actually purifying negative imprints. Ordinarily, when we see things in an impure way, then we are creating further imprints within the mind. So through the instructions of the Holy Dharma, we have received them with the six sense consciousnesses that then have entered through the five sense doors and have made their way to our mind streams, where then these teachings begin to melt the ice block of our mind. So our mind currently, although it is like water, has become like an ice block. So we say that the mind is actually Buddha. So some people might wonder about that. How is it really Buddha? So we all understand that ice is water, right? So that's one point that we can agree upon. So then, however, even though it is water, the way we understand the mind and being like an ice block is that even though it's water, it is just like a piece of rock too, temporarily. So if you hit somebody with it, they will bleed, even though it's actually water. So it depends on causes and conditions coming together interdependently, that will then, these interdependent causes and conditions will then eventually and gradually cause this ice block to melt into water. And the way to melt the ice block into water is through the practice that the Buddha had laid out in the form of a threefold path of the Pratimoksha, the Bodhisattva, and the Vajrayana vehicles. So as we follow this path of practice, slowly the ice block is melting. So first, on our path, we must understand karma. And then we realize that karma is empty of self-nature. And then we must cultivate bodhicitta and love and compassion. Actually, when love and compassion arise, then we will naturally realize the empty nature of mind. So that the mind is this unified state of emptiness and compassion, or clarity and emptiness. It is the natural state that is free from the four extremes. So when we understand the mind, we can understand that we actually are able to accomplish Buddhahood. However, if we only base our practice on emptiness, emptiness alone will not accomplish Buddhahood. We need to cultivate this union of emptiness and compassion, or clarity and emptiness. And then the mind is realized as being free from the four extremes, being free from eternalism and nihilism, existence and non-existence. There's nothing there in the mind that possesses any true substance. And it's something that you can only realize yourself. So the Buddha therefore had called it inexpressible, in being beyond words and thoughts. So it is something that, however, nowadays, for example, many scientists are beginning to ascertain. There are many who investigate, who analyze whether or not the consciousness ultimately exists and so on. And some say it does, and some say it doesn't. But if we really look into the mind, we can, even on a scientific basis, understand that Buddhahood is something that can be attained. It's something that we can understand if we really analyze, if you really think about it. And so the cause for it is within us. So because Buddhahood can be attained, anything else also arises. The three lower realms also appear, and the Pure Lands also arise. So we can understand that even in a scientific or logical way. And based on that, we develop an even deeper trust in the Dharma, that really nobody can turn us away from. So that means once you have recognized, really gained certainty in how things really are in their natural state, then even if the Buddha Shakyamuni himself or somebody in his shape would come to you and tell you that's not how it is, that's not how things really are, you would still have no doubts in how things really are because you have gained certainty. And so the certainty arises first through understanding karma. First, we have to gain certainty in the infallibility of cause and effect. And so karma is unfailing. And that is something we can also easily develop trust in. So the Buddha laid out this threefold path of the Pratimoksha, Bodhisattva, and the Vajrayana vehicles, of which the Vajrayana secret mantra vehicle is a path that is rich in skillful means and requires the least difficulties. And so this practice belongs to the Vajrayana path, and the practice text of Vajrakilaya has been translated from Tibetan into English, and then it also has the prose version has been versified, and so it can be chanted together in the same melody. And basically all the necessities, the criteria required for Vajrayana practice are now available and have been placed into the hands of the disciples. And having received this gift, a real feeling and experience in their practice can arise. And so actually what we need to understand is that what is precious, what is important is the practitioner. And it's not just the deity. So of course we can say Vajrakilaya is very precious, but then all the wisdom deities are very precious. Vajrakilaya also, by the way, is a deity that is practiced throughout all the four major lineages of the Sakya, Gelugpa, Nyingma, and the Kagyu lineages. For example, according to the Gelugpa lineage, there is a dharma from the previous Sogyar that contains a Vajrakilaya practice. And then there's also, of course, the Nyingma tradition of the Dharma tradition of the Vajrakilaya. And then there's also an oral transmission according to the new tantric system. It's practiced throughout all the lineages. And Vajrakilaya, or also called Vajrakumara, and Vajradhara, for instance, are all one and the same. They just have different names. They all are included within the vast expanse of primordial wisdom. And so now many of you have engaged in this practice for many years now, and therefore many of you have developed some experiences in your minds. And throughout the years, I have given teachings on the sadhana to the best of my abilities. So, therefore, I've introduced you also very clearly to the meaning of the specific empowerment.
Sanako tsowa che yore, tsowa che yore, tine tine yang tila tso, ta yogo tine ki, ta sanabla la sopa tine, nyot toko so, hlai kusam toko sanam, gusto toko sana, yang hapsem che yore, deya kiya yomare, kashi ege tine, rang tesa dhupa tola, o tati nyamni che tine, yang tang toko che ne tine, nyamni che tine mewa chak yore, tine rang dhupa toko ta pene tine, they told you how my own the polar and the Yam Dramata Yori. They told you the Rank Duba Yamish, so Machira, they told you regulated to Potati, the Nimo talk to me, the Tumoko Debati, Rivatin Docha, Topati Shedan, the Teton de Tomo, the taste of Duba, Unity and Pachadri. Diri sanjeke unta lower to mountain pakchari in jongo yore. Diri zangu pakchari, like crossing Tokyo, the la sopa, the top chillatini, zangu pakchari, really, the tini, Toga ghost in Italy, Rami Juli Shoko yore. Then the pakcha, the three yoktan, the town, three yoktan, the Shina, three pakcha pa jontan, the hako remini, penang so. Three Kane, Bajak Yoresta, Metin, oh, ya Lankeja Siamore. The Pachakari Yaore. Ya, doing holy Tawa, the same the Tawa, make a same the Tawa. Didn't make the Ya Langon, the part of the Japtat Baparjado, 3 out of the Otan, go to Chekita or some. They don't say with Pachad and not Tawachi. Diri chada toba tiri rapa chiri diri ngusun kowa de tata nega jumata workshop diri tatok diri yang matapa de samjeng totok yore diri tati kiri niga matapa re nizere matapa re doni re diri haa kosong tsani ta tsuri tata ngimbe bakcha dina dungi chimbo yore diri roa rikto kamsum senji de kamsubo diri dungi yore ti daad matane dungi yore diri bola 저 박차주는 유는 뭐고 거래 들이 며칠 망고 걸 같이 지나 봐보고 같이 로다 나와 있어 같이 니자 찍을 접속 때라서 봐 가자 왕보람들 탔으면 들이 대용거리 대통치 라 선항매 봐 같은 라는 게 냠슬이 신아 들이 가래 들이 좋았죠 요래 일랑 대회는 들이 다다 디 드럽친 값을 양서 냠슬 랑니 냠용 옆에 그래서 드럽친 값을 찍고도록 삼고 요래 여러 때 가래들이 다들 영화 있으면 플라이 고성도 박차되잖아 다 저런도 봐셔 뒤 소화제 그래 이 문투들이 제는들이 무슨들이 랑토를 맞추기 돌도 그래 대회는 뒤 좋다고 유는 뭐 끼와는 끼와 처럼 냠슬린 거 오서는 이 담자조는 담자가 때리 대사람들이 냠슬랑나 들이 제어양들이 끼와하서를 맞아야 되는 거요래 대상 고민이 다 답장 같이 레사왕 다시 조고조 빼서나 친구도 다 남상 들어온 것은 말이 대학 대사들이 레와기는 초도요래 답대양 덕치고 그래지
So we have engaged in this practice for a few years now, and there are a few practitioners who really have gained some experience and a real feeling has arisen within them. They have experienced the blessings of this practice, but then again, we get busy and we kind of want to rush things often, and we want instant, quick attainments. We want to get those blessings and attainments and so on very quickly. So we want to accomplish the qualities of the deity's body, speech, and mind right away. So even though the practice has great blessings, we also shouldn't be too ambitious and expecting huge results almost instantly. So everyone is really different. There are some practitioners whose obscurations are thicker, and so when they practice and don't really see much results, then often they get very tired of practice and eventually they don't want to practice at all anymore. So that's a sign of thicker obscurations. So different practitioners have different experiences in their practice. But if no special feelings or experiences arise at all, it's a sign that karmic obscurations are thicker. And of the three poisons, it is mainly related to ignorance. If we develop a lot of hopes, then that's related to attachment. And if we develop fears, then that's related to aversion or hatred. And having many doubts also is ignorance. So it is then that through these tendencies of the three poisons, we create imprints in our mind. And these imprints are what the Buddha meant with those adventitious stains, those obscurations. It's those habitual tendencies, these imprints in the mind. And so by practicing the Deity, we are first creating positive imprints in the mind of the Deity's enlightened body, speech, and mind, the Deity's qualities. And so then as you keep continuing your practice, continuously then your 6 sense consciousnesses are open and receptive, and then the imprints, the blessings of the Deity can enter into your mind stream. And then when they enter into your mind stream and are placed into your mind stream, then you will understand the authentic view, how things really are. For example, it's like when you're watching something happen on a TV screen. So you're looking at a clip of a person standing up and moving around and saying something, talking. So that's just like these imprints, how it appears to us. So the actual film is like the mind of a person. So the film upon which the whole film is imprinted, so that the film roll is the mind of a person. And so then when we look at the screen, we get the illusory impression that so something is happening. There is a person moving around, person talking. But what's really happening is when you look at the film roll, is that there's an infinite number of pictures that are all played like in one moment, one after the other, very quickly. So it looks like, actually they are all unmoving pictures, but if you play them all together really fast, it looks like there's a person actually doing something and talking. So it's just like that with our mind and those imprints. There's like all these imprints, one after the other, stored in the mind. And so then gradually when we allow them to remain, those subtle imprints become stronger imprints of attachment and aversion. And as they become increasingly coarse, then that creates the illusory appearances of samsaric existence. And everything is, however, ultimately empty, because everything that appears is a compounded phenomenon, and therefore impermanent, and therefore empty of self-nature. So this is how those imprints exist in our mind and how they create a lot of illusory suffering manifesting to us, to all the sentient beings in the 6 or the 3 realms of samsara. And they will continue to suffer because they have not let go of that self. So it takes a long time. For some, it might take several lifetimes of practice, or an entire lifetime, or several years or months, and some even might accomplish it within a single day. There are different mental capacities, higher, middling, and lower. And no matter what, we have to engage in practice without ever growing tired from the practice. And if we understand that point, then gradually an experience, feeling from practice will slowly arise if we just keep doing the practice. So there are some practitioners, for example, who have reported that when they engage in a retreat practice like this, they feel quite happy at that time. And that is because for that period of time, they experience the enlightened body, speech, and mind of the deity. It's like their own body, speech, and mind becomes that. And so for that time, the ice block is somewhat melting. And due to this melting, feeling and experience arises within them. But then this has to be sustained. We have to keep practicing. And as a result, not only will we ourselves become liberated, but we will then also be able to liberate others. So regardless of where we are at, we should have a firm commitment in our mind to continue to practice, regardless of this life or future lives.
In the secret mantra, Vajrayana, it is said that all appearances are the deity, and all sound is mantra. All thoughts arising in the mind are the display of primordial wisdom. Therefore, the Vajrayana says that one's body, speech, and mind are pure, and an empowerment opens the gates to seeing that. And there are many different empowerments. There are longer empowerments, medium-length empowerments, and shorter empowerments. And this particular empowerment is a concise empowerment, which also is an ultimate empowerment to introduce to actual practice, and it is conferred based on the Dharma. So body, speech, and mind empowerment are conferred through the Dharma. And for that, we should next visualize at the deity's 3 places. At the forehead, throne, and heart are the 3 syllables Amahung. And also at our 3 places, us who receive the empowerment, at our 3 places also are the 3 syllables Amahung. And so, through visualizing this, we are establishing a link between ourselves and the deity, by means of which then the blessings of the empowerment can be transmitted. So that's the important thing to understand here. The important thing to understand in the secret mantra is that ultimately, in reality, the Buddha had said, all sentient beings are actually Buddhas, no matter what being it is. All beings in the three realms of samsara. In the desire realm, form realm, and formless realm, all beings have a self, and because they have a self, their nature is suffering. And all habitual imprints are within that self. And in order to clear away the suffering that comes from these habitual tendencies, we receive an empowerment. So the empowerment purifies our ordinary imprints of body, speech, and mind. So this is the purpose of the meaning of empowerment in a secret mantra. And so this empowerment is conferred based on the Dharma.